Alright, imagine with me for a moment that for some reason I have been put in charge of the anime adaptation of Demon Slayer. I know it sounds crazy and that's never gonna happen, but just bear with me here. Guys, before we get started, I would just like to say a disclaimer that this video is meant to 100% be silly and hypothetical and just having a little bit of fun. I am in no way, shape, or form trying to put down Demon Slayer's adaptation of Hashira training. I'm not trying to be whiny or complaining about it. This video is 100% hypothetical and just being fun. I loved this season of Demon Slayer. I have very few gripes with it. It was very, very fun. They did a spectacular job at it. Okay? All right. I am well aware that I have no idea what goes on behind the scenes of producing an anime, so I could never even dream of trying to say that I could do it better than them, because I could not do it better than them. Let's be real. But let's be hypothetical for a little while. Just bear with me, have some fun. I've been thinking a lot about Hashira training, obviously. And that got me thinking about, like, what could I have done differently if for some reason I had the power to do so? And now the only reason that I can even have this conversation in my head or with all of my YouTube viewers is because Hashira training was at least like 50% anime original content, maybe even more. And because it was so much anime original content, that just kind of opens the door for people to be like, hey, like, Ufotable decided to go this route. What about if they went this route? Like, what could have happened if that happened? And that's kind of the point of this video. So I obviously think Ufotable did a super, super spectacular job, but looking back, there were quite a few things that I would have done differently, again, if I hypothetically had the power. So first things first, let's talk about Nezuko. Now, I want to make something abundantly clear. I 100% support the plot sending her away from training and everything. I 100% understand why she was not present during Hashira training. She absolutely needed to be somewhere far, far away from where the Slayers were because the demons could have attacked them at any minute. And if she was found, not only would that completely change the story because she would die, and the whole point of the story is to turn her back into a human, but it also would mean, like, the end of humanity. All the other people would die because Muzan would become immortal. And Kaguya understands that. Kaguya is very, very smart. That's why he's placed himself as bait. He knows he is expendable. Nezuko is not. And these demon slayers need to be a part of the fight, so they need to help with it. Technically, they are expendable as well, but Nezuko is not, okay? So, like, wanting to get that out of the way, Nezuko not being present that much makes perfect sense. However, I never liked that she just kind of disappeared. The anime did add at least one small scene. In the manga, literally, she just completely disappears. And then the next thing we know is Tanjiro is literally on his way to Gyu at the end of the training, and that's when he's like, oh, is she lonely? And I was like, bro, like, what happened? That was, like, my biggest issue with the lack of Nezuko in this season, not the fact that she was far away from the action. Again, that made sense. And while the added scene where Tanjiro is talking to Muichiro did definitely help, I can't help but wonder why they didn't add more. One thing I've always said is that Ufotable seems to absolutely love the Kamado siblings, as they should. They are the main characters of the story. They are quite literally driving the plot forward because the plot is mostly about turning Nezuko back into a human, and then the other half is about defeating Muzan, which we wouldn't have even got here if he didn't attack the Kamado family that day. So it definitely surprised me somewhat that they didn't add something to it, because they've proven time and time again that they really love to sit on their relationship, and every time there's been important moments, they've added to it. So what I would have liked regarding Nezuko is in two parts, and one of them is more about Tanjiro, but I would have loved to see a conversation between him and probably like someone like Shinobu or maybe Urokodaki, someone he looks up to, where they have to literally, like, tell him, explain to him that Nezuko needs to go far away from where they are at. This would be great development for Tanjiro, in my opinion. The entire story, he keeps talking about how he wants to protect her, that he's gonna keep her with him at all times, that they can never be separated, that their bond can't be severed, all of this kind of stuff. but he needs to learn that at this moment, at this present time, in order to protect her, he has to let her go. And I think there should have been some back and forth between him and Shinobu where, like, he really has to listen to her and come to terms with the fact that this is the right step, because I don't think this would have been an easy decision for him, considering he's been so hellbent on keeping her with him this entire story. She kind of has to talk him through how important it is that he is a part of this training, but she cannot be present because the demons could attack at any time, and he has to process the fact that that's the right decision. This could have developed both Tanjiro and the plot better, because it would explain why Nezuko isn't really around and make it a little bit less like whiplashy feeling that Tanjiro's been like so hellbent on keeping her with him to being like, oh, I haven't seen her in months, I hope she's okay, like what? So that's one of the things that I would have liked to see, is like a conversation where Tanjiro really has to grapple with it. The second part of Nezuko is, I cannot believe they didn't do this, but a scene where they say goodbye to each other. It didn't even have to be a scene where they said goodbye to each other, but just more scenes between the two of them, because we don't see them interact at all during Hashira training. All of the time that she gets in episode 1, he's not there because he's still bedridden. First off, Ufotable drew this absolutely stunning picture of the two of them just basking in the sunlight. Tanjiro is still like recovering clearly. He's got his foot in a cast, but she's pointing at the sunlight, and this was, I guess, the cover of the episode 1 script. If they went through all of the trouble to draw this picture, why did they not insert this into the anime? But truly what I wanted was a, like, tearful goodbye. Ufotable loves making us cry over the Kamado siblings. Every single emotional moment between them that was already emotional in the manga, they multiplied that tenfold in the anime. Think about the end of Swordsmith Village. Like, I barely had time to cry when I read that in the manga. In the anime, I was hiccuping, sobbing because of how much time they took to make us really emotional over the siblings. Like, there are so many reasons why I would want, like, a tearful goodbye between the two of them. Many of them are manga spoilers, so I won't talk about them, but it just really would have been such a beautiful moment to have them saying goodbye to each other, knowing that, like, they don't know when they're gonna see each other again, knowing that both of their lives are in incredible danger. I mean, they always have been, but like it's heightened now because of what happened, and it just could have been so good. I would have sobbed. I would have loved it so much, and I think the audience would have loved it too. Like, I'm super thankful that Ufotable at least added the scene where he's talking about her with Muichiro to like at least show us that he didn't just completely forget about her. Because it was kind of wild how much it seemed like he just didn't like care, and that's why it felt kind of weird to the plot. It genuinely surprised me. I feel like this was a missed opportunity from them, that they didn't add something like this, because again, something that I've always felt is that they really like to extend things with Nezuko and Tanjiro and really show that bond. Like, they've introduced songs for them, they do these flashbacks that's not in the manga. It was very shocking to me that they didn't add anything with them. They are the show. They are what makes the show so good, in my opinion, so it surprised me that they didn't add this, truly. Okay, we can move on from that. That was, like, the main point that I wanted to make, that I wished was just, like, a part of this story. Since they had so much time to add to it, it doesn't add up to me that they didn't add more time between the two of them. But whatever, it is what it is. I feel like I'm acting like I care a lot. That's the one that I do care about. I really did want more with that, but it's fine. It's fine. I'm fine. Okay, so the next one, this isn't like a huge deal, but I would have liked to have seen like at least Kanao go through some of the training. I mean, where was she? When they were all like Yomi's training, I was like, did she already pass? Or were they really just splitting up males and females in this training, which like would make sense with like the time that Demon Slayer takes place, that they would split up the males and the females, but like, why didn't we get to see at least a little bit of what she was doing? I would have liked to see at some point a scene where we just kind of checked in with Kanao, maybe even Shinobu and Tamayo, etc., something like that. Like, in the season finale, Tamayo inserts medicine to turn a demon back into a human into Muzan. and she said that she's perfected it. I think it would have been really good for them to add a scene at least where like Shinobu and Tamayo have like a moment where they're like, oh my god, we're so close, that sort of thing, to help build up to that point a little bit more, because obviously at the end of Swordsmith Village, like Tamayo has found a lot of different things, but it's unclear how close she is to actually be able to make the medicine. So it would have been good to see a scene between the two of them where they were kind of talking about where they were getting, check in with Kanao, see her go through some of the training a little bit, and just kind of have a moment or two with them. Nothing huge, just like a few minutes. Just a few minutes. Okay, and finally, my last point that I would have done differently is more Mitsuri. If y'all watch any of my episode recaps, you might know that this was the one thing while the season was airing that I actually kind of got peeved about. It was the way episode 5 was handled. A lot of people called out that they don't feel like Mitsuri's training really lent itself to a lot of extra time, and while I somewhat agree with that, I still feel like we could have seen more of her, spent more time with her, training with the Hashira, writing the letter to Obanai, like, etc., that kind of stuff. This is my absolute biggest gripe with the season. They gave Muichiro an entire episode, while Mitsuri got 3 minutes. Both of these Hashiras got highlighted last season. Tengen was highlighted in Entertainment District, Muichiro got highlighted in Swordsmith Village, and Mitsuri got highlighted in Swordsmith Village. If we were following the same flow, we still would have given Mitsuri more time. But the thing is, too, Muichiro got way more screen time in Swordsmith Village than Mitsuri did. Like, both of them were highlighted, but Muichiro got 2 names episode after him, and a third that had his name in it. And a lot more screen time. I did my research. I'll break this down for you. So I'm going to look at my notes really quick here. So mind my looking to the side here. In Swordsmith Village, Muichiro got half of episode 7, all of episode 8. Like, literally even Tanjiro's voice actor wasn't credited in episode 8. That's how little other characters showed up in 8. It was all Muichiro. And he also got more than half of 9 among all the other scenes that he was in episode 2, episode 3, episode 4, and episode 5. He literally appeared in every single episode of the season, with some of them being completely dedicated to him. Mitsuri got some of episode 1, but she was completely not present for episode 2 and 3, got about 10 seconds at the end of 4, had about 5 minutes of episode 5, which was still less time than what Muichiro got in episode 5, was again completely not present for 6, 7, and 8, finally got a little bit of time, a few minutes, not even, at the end of 9, and even her episode with her name, episode 10, she didn't get the full thing and was barely in 11. Okay, I didn't really care about this at all when I read the manga or when I watched the season. That's just how the season was built. That's how, they had to pace things. Not a big deal. I didn't really care. I also didn't really care because technically Mitsuri actually got a little bit more time than Muichiro in Hashira training. And I can't go into major details about what is to come. Both of them still have stuff to come. But in my opinion, Ufotable has made it painfully aware that they prefer Muichiro over Mitsuri, which is okay, that's fine, I guess. But Mitsuri is a character that is so interesting to me because she does not follow the same storyline that most of the characters follow. She didn't lose her family to demons. She doesn't have a really sad sob story about all this trauma of her past. She has a much more relatable story of coming to terms with herself and pushing back on societal standards for her so that she can do something and find someone that she loves. And there is so much to love about her character and how she kind of flips the status quo within the story. This was genuinely the part where I was like, I'm kind of pissed off about this. I love you, Ufotable, if you're watching this. I'm so sorry. I genuinely do not mean this in any bad way. It was so glaringly obvious that, Mitsuri just got the short end of the stick. And maybe it's just because her voice actor didn't have the time that the others did. That could be it. And I could be totally just making a big scene out of something that's so minute. But What I want to say is, I love that we got more time in Tengen and Muicho. I genuinely do. I love that they extended their trainings, but I would have evened it out way more. There was plenty of opportunity to give Mitsuri more time. In my honest opinion, the only Hashiras that they didn't really need to add time with was Sanemi, because his didn't need to get extended. That would kind of ruin the plot, because the whole point of his training is that Tanjiro has to leave earlier, like he's only there for a few days. And then the other two that didn't really need more time were Gyomei and Gyu, because they got their development during this story, so they didn't need to add a whole lot of fluff to it because they already were getting development. All these characters either got their time or still are getting their time. But when it comes to Tengen, Muicho, and Mitsuri, they've already all been, like, they've had their arcs and they're still alive. Sorry, Rengoku fans. So it makes sense that they would, like, add a little bit more to just kind of almost, like, close up their characters, I guess. But, like, Mitsuri's just the anomaly here. She's the one that's already gotten highlighted in a season, but didn't get, like, all of this extra time. She just felt left out. Like, she felt like an afterthought. And that made me sad, because I genuinely do love her. I think there's so much to love about her. With that being said, now that I've kind of talked through, like, my biggest, I guess, grievances with the season, and it's only those, like, 3 things. So it just goes to show how much I still genuinely enjoyed the season. There was just these 3 obvious, like, pain points to me where I just, like, was like, why didn't we add this? But there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, so I genuinely just don't really know why, but it is what it is. It's not a big deal. So that being said, I'm going to kind of outline how I would have laid out the season with these changes. So episode 1 would stay pretty much the same. It would still start out with that Sanemi and Obanai anime original scene, because I thought that was totally sick, and the plot hole that it technically created didn't really affect the story too much. I would take out some of the random fluff that they added and probably speed up the Hashira meeting just a little bit. So I could add a scene where Shinobu or Urokodaki, probably Shinobu, talks to Tanjiro about Nezuko. In the first episode, they added just like a lot of random fluff and really stretched things out. So that's like kind of what I would cut out and then just add somewhere, I don't know where it would need to fall, but somewhere that conversation between the two of them. And then episode 2 would stay almost exactly the same. I'm so sorry, Aoi stands, but I would cut out the scene with Tanjiro and Aoi and make that Tanjiro and Nezuko's, like, goodbye. Like, Shinobu comes in, she says, hey, it's time for her to leave, and they say goodbye to each other, and we all cry. And I wouldn't really change anything else about episode 2. I think they did Gyu's story very, very well. Then I would make episode 3 both Tengen and Muichiro. Both of them would still be very extended, but each would get about roughly 10 minutes instead. Then episode 4 would be 10 minutes of Mitsuri, so she would get the same amount of time as Tengen and Muichiro, and then about 10 minutes of, like, the check-in with Kanao, Shinobu, Tamayo, something like that. Maybe even another check-in with Nezuko? And then episode 10 would be about 10 minutes of Obanai, which I think he got pretty close to that. And then the second 10 minutes would be Sanemi and the start of Gyomei's training. So honestly, not a ton of change there because Mitsuri was such a small amount in that episode that it pretty much follows the same flow. We just had Mitsuri have time in the last episode. So it's just Sanemi, Obanai, and then the introduction to Gyomei. And then from there, I wouldn't change anything else. I think episode 6 is really when they hit their stride, where I felt like everything was just perfectly mixed with anime original content and manga content. And it just, 6, 7, and 8, I look back on, I'm like, those were absolutely the top tier episodes of the season. Episode 2 was also very, very good because of Gyu's backstory. The rest were kind of, like, still very good, but just kind of fell to the wayside in my brain. Again, I fully intended for this video to be a hypothetical conversation and fun. I know I got a little bit heated while I was talking about stuff, but at the end of the day, there is so much going on behind the scenes that I, as a fan, don't know about. So I really, like, the best I can do is just say this is what I would have changed, but I don't really care because at the end of the day, the things that I still stated, while I feel like they would have progressed the plot forward and fixed some of my, like, gripes with the manga, that's not really Ufotable's job to do. Ufotable's job is to adapt the manga faithfully. The rest, when they have this extra time, is really up to them. So they still did a spectacular job. there was just a few things that I would have changed that kind of like made me a little bit frustrated. But now that I've said it, I feel a lot better. So here we go. And finally, it's very, very important for the fandom to understand that while we all might have a laundry list of things that we want to see when there's anime original content, of how we want things adapted, we need to remember something very important. Our laundry list is ours as random fans who don't even speak the same language as the creators of this stuff. And that does not give us a place to hate on Ufotable, to hate on the production. That is not what I'm doing here, and I hope you all feel like this was totally respectful, that I truly understand where Ufotable is coming from. I just had things that I would have changed or that surprised me. If it doesn't follow your laundry list, that does not give you a right to be hateful towards animators or production people. It just means that they are not going the exact direction that you as a fan felt it should have gone. And that is okay. That is media. That is how things are going to happen. It doesn't mean that it was bad. It just means that it didn't fit yours or my expectations. And I want to close the video with that. I hope that everyone can follow a bit more of the book of it's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to not like some creative directions that's like Ufotable has gone at times, and it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to like pick your brain and pick the brain of your followers, like what I'm doing, but it is not okay to cross that line and turn it into like hateful messaging and saying that the adaption is a horrible adaption just because like you had this laundry list of things that you hoped the anime original content would be. So I hope you all understand this is all in good fun. But I am going to close out the video here. If you liked this kind of video, please let me know in the comments below what you would have done if you were randomly in charge of the Demon Slayer Hashira training arc. You can let me know in the comments below. But if you liked this video, please like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that. I would greatly appreciate it, as it would greatly help me out. You can also turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell. You can also follow me on social media. I am on Instagram, X, and TikTok as Looking Nerdy, and I'm currently trying to grow my platform on Instagram, so if you would like to see more cosplay stuff or just regular day-to-day cons and life, go ahead and follow me on Instagram. I'll put the link to all my socials in the description as always, and thank you for watching. With that, I say, Johnny!